process, and I'm really happy to be here to help. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and hope this all works well from the beginning. There. Can you confirm for me, Natalia, that you can see the screen?
Yes. Yeah. And we can
Okay, wonderful. Great. Well, I'm here to talk about school travel planning and the collaborative approach that we're using here in Waterloo Region. In our humble opinion, school travel planning works best as a collaborative effort among many stakeholders, and that is the truth in our area. What's different about us is that we've come to a co-funded model between school boards and municipalities. So though our partnership extends beyond just those two, we have a governance model that is focused between the schools and the municipalities that fund us. So we think that this model works really well because the intersection between school and city jurisdictions is where school travel planning needs to be focused. And school traffic and waning uptake of active school travel is essentially a problem that belongs to everyone. And as we all know, for decades, it's been treated as if it belongs to no one. I really don't need to tell you guys about the benefits, but I will zero in on my favorite here. And these are all proven benefits, of course. My favorite is graduated independence, because every child deserves a chance to develop independent mobility and the life skills that will allow them to access their municipality and the space that they live in. I've included a little link at the bottom of these slides, and I will share the slide deck. I have already shared it with Natalia. So that you can see a white paper that includes the proofs for all of these benefits, in case that's helpful for you as you move through the process. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the rest of these, but I know that we don't probably need to spend too much time on that today. And frankly, I guess we all know that we just want to see less of this and more kids walking. So school travel planning, the process is rarely a linear process with any of the practitioners that I've ever worked with or spoke to. Really, reassessments and adjustments happen along the way at all given times. Sometimes a school will stall for a little while and then come back into it quite heavily as well. So the complexity of the program, of the interventions, the complexity of the school situations and cultures means that for us anyway, it really required dedicated facilitators that have the flexibility and who can focus on this one job. As soon as, in our past, we stumbled through many years without that kind of focus, and very little sustainable impact was ever made. You know that when we engage a school, there's some setup time. You want to connect with the principal and the school committee, kind of strike a school committee. And then we start with assessments right away, because this is a data-driven process. So we want to get the full school profile, get some family surveys done, do a walkabout and the traffic counts inside in the classroom at the hands up surveys. And then we get busy drafting the action plan. Those three things happen in a bit of a flurry of activity in the first couple of months with a school. And then once that action plan is sort of drafted, it takes quite a long time to start to implement, or to implement those 5 E's. And I will say those 5 E's, that you probably know 5 of them, and you guys are working with 6, I think, as Natalia just said. So encouragement, education, evaluation, enforcement, and engineering. We look at equity as a lens that we place over top of all of these 5 E's, so that it is hopefully incorporated in everything that we do. So that implementation stage can really take from 1 year to several years, depending on the actions that are chosen for a particular action plan. You may also be very much aware that some of those engineering interventions can take a good number of years. So we because we have these dedicated facilitators, we have the opportunity to support a school through that whole transition time. And so in Waterloo, we aim to get all the schools finally into that ongoing stage where the only thing that they have to work on is education, encouragement, and then we like to continue to do the evaluation as well. And again, with our dedicated staff, we can ensure that those schools don't just get forgotten once they get through the 1 or 2 year school travel planning process. Often schools will experience a different traffic pattern when maybe a new Tim Hortons gets built on the corner, or a new program is implemented at the school, where suddenly we have more special education buses arriving or something like that. So we want to be with schools as long as they need us to, and hope to sustain those mode shifts that they've achieved in their early days. This process works. And here's an example. I'm sorry, it's a little bit dated, but due to COVID, our data collection processes have been a little interrupted. So this is one of the more recent examples where we could get both pre and post data consistently and during months that were comparable. So in 2019, St. Bridget achieved about a 4% increase in walking between April and November. We chose those two, they're months of similar temperature and rainfall here. The interventions that they implemented in that time included a pedestrian skills training program we call Sidewalk Smarts. They had celebration days, like Winter Walk. Well, I guess it wouldn't have been Winter Walk Day. They did probably the Spring into Spring and the International Walk to School Day. They had traffic maps and a program we call Drive to 5. Some people call it Park and Walk or Walk a Block programs. We had regular communication going out to parents during that period. They did not need any engineering changes at this school at the time, and under enforcement, we included that they implemented a CAA standing foot patrol, and they had parking lot supervision in their parking lot. And of course, for evaluation, we did our pre-surveys. We had a walkabout with all of the stakeholders, and they did the bike, walk, roll, hands up data in the classroom, of course. So yeah, it's really great to see that in such a short time, we could affect a change like this. It doesn't look like a lot. It's a highly bused area, but to me, that means even more, that we could get them up to 17% students walking. Another way that we've sort of seen the proof of this program is right on the streets. Having dedicated staff has also allowed us to get out on the streets and perform our own traffic behavior data collection. So we get 3 people on the street. We block off the school zone in about 50-meter sections, and we each count the behaviors that we see in those sections. And so we've done this for 4 years now, and we usually repeat 5 or more schools each year. So we've been able to see the difference year over year between some schools that have high level of STP intervention and schools with much lower intervention. You can see by this slide that some of the things that we count are whether people are stopping in no stopping areas, parking in no parking areas, whether they're performing U-turns and 3-point turns, reversing or speeding through the school zone. Now, some of these behaviors are not illegal, but they are ill-advised around children who can't see the same way that adults can. They don't have the same sight lines. So those U-turns and 3-point turns and reversing are more dangerous for them for that point, and also because they can't predict the way that vehicles will move. So in this slide here, you can see that there were pretty sizable reductions of many of the dangerous behaviors at schools that had high levels of STP intervention. And it's remarkable when we then look at the schools that had low levels of STP intervention, and they had much lower or less obvious reductions in behaviors. And in one area, speeding, there were overwhelming increases. In water, since you guys are kind of forming your strategy here, I think this might be an important slide for you. In Waterloo Region, the school travel planning process has really been a work in progress over many, many years. We started in 2002 with an Active and Safe Routes to School group being launched here, and that was led by public health, involved the school boards, the bus consortium. We had the I served on it actually as a parent at the time, and there was a principal involved. So it wasn't just, it was the board planners and a principal and me. I'm trying to remember who else was there. The school crossing guard supervisors were on it as well. So it was really, and in Waterloo Region, we have a two-tier government. So we have a regional government, and we have each of the municipalities as their own government as well. So we brought together the three major cities and the region, along with the school boards and different levels of stakeholders in each of those areas. So they met monthly since 2002, and they took advantage of some small grant opportunities to promote active and safe routes to school. And then they moved in around 2008, they moved into school travel planning. And then they worked on some policy initiatives. They did more school travel planning. And finally, around 2013, they started to think they needed to maybe have a dedicated school travel planner in the region, but they weren't quite sure how they could make that happen because there were a lot of players, and nobody really had the funding to house a school travel planner on their own. And it's not just about the funding. They also had a hard time thinking about where that person should sit so that it could serve the whole region well. You can probably imagine it's pretty complex when you have a double tier system, and three cities of varying sizes, all competing for the same sort of attention from a single person. So in 2013, when they brought together city councilors and school board trustees to talk about the possibility, it really didn't get off the ground that quickly or that easily. It took a few more years of taking advantage of more pilot project funding. They did a wayfinding project in Waterloo that then expanded to Kitchener and Cambridge. So things kind of trickled in and around. And then finally, in 2016, there was an incident at a school that brought a city councilor in front of his council to request this school travel planning position again. And that was at the city of Kitchener. And that happened in tandem with this ASRTS group had already been hoping and planning to hold a second stakeholder forum. And so when they were able to pull those folks together, there was already a movement from within one of the cities. And that forum became a forum to prepare for the school travel planner position, to really not take no for an answer this time, I guess. And so this school travel planning position was born, and I was hired into it in September of 2016, pardon me. And so because those prior projects had proven the STP model, and none of them had had the capacity in the past, they had a hard time figuring out exactly where this role would sit. And if it eventually emerged that it made most sense to have me or this role sit with the school bus consortium, because it was outside of both, like it was a collaborative effort between the two school boards, but it was not connected to the school boards. And it was also outside of the municipalities, but they worked very closely with the municipalities already on other items like bus loading zones and traffic near schools to allow busing. So, so we had these relationships already set, and it seemed like it was the best place for this person to sit politically, but it also is a unique vantage point for a school travel planner to sit within the consortium because we have access to all the student data. We know where people live. We know how they travel now. And so it just made sense for us to be able to start with that data and that information and understanding, as well as having those relationships with the individual schools, where every one of those schools relies on school travel, or sorry, on student transportation services. So we could definitely depend on a call back if we ever called out to a school. So through 2016, that loose collaborative funding arrangement was made by it started actually with just 2 of our large municipalities and the 2 school boards. So Kitchener and Waterloo came together, and our 2 school boards. And I should note that at the very beginning, the city of Kitchener, because their councillor made that motion to begin with, they had a budget line for school travel planning built right from 2016 on. Waterloo never had that. And the 2 school boards didn't really have a fund. They were finding the funding for it, but there was not really a budget line in anybody's budget for this work. They just had agreed. This loose agreement was made, and because they were all depending on each other, nobody wanted to let each other down. So it was easy to rely on the money, I guess, after that. So they created one full-time equivalent through this loose collaborative agreement, and I get to focus entirely on school travel planning because of that. So this is just a demonstration of how and where we sit. So the STP group now sits with STSWR. We have the region of Waterloo has just joined us. You'll see here the 2 school boards that we serve are Waterloo Region District School Board and Waterloo Catholic District School Board. The city of Cambridge has joined us. Kitchener is here, of course, and Waterloo is down here. And now, thanks to Ontario Active School Travel funding in Ontario back in 2018, we qualified for 3 grants because we had these 3 cities engaged, and we received $264,000 in grant money for to expand our program to include 2 additional STP facilitators through 2020. And our goal with that project was to kind of figure out what level of service, what level of resources did we need to service the number of schools that we have in the region. And we have 160 or so schools. That includes the high schools. So we really were just taking a guess and went with the 2 additional facilitators. So through that pilot project, we really proved that those 2 facilitators are needed to keep up with the demand in the area. Now, this isn't even us looking at every school and figuring out what every school needs. This is just us being able to answer the calls when at the highest need schools. And we've been keeping up with that demand, we're grateful to say, and we've been able to develop some programs and projects that have reached all schools as well. So, so we're really excited that we've been able to better fulfill the demand that we were seeing there. Again, that 2-year grant period ended in 2020. Since then, we qualified again for OAST funding. I'll talk about that in a moment. And our partners settled on on a greater funding model that covers the 3 positions in perpetuity finally. This funding model that we're working on now is going to be expandable. We have 4 townships that are not yet part of this partnership. That doesn't mean their schools are ignored because the school boards cover their funding, but we are in a position where we can invite them to join our team as well. And so this group well, I'll talk about this group here, our steering committee, because these are the people who fund us. These are the people who meet monthly to discuss the relevant activities and to lend direction to this work. We also meet independently with each of the cities every month to discuss the various issues and engineering issues that we're working on with them in their areas. But this steering committee really is able then to discuss the broader direction, any new tools coming down the pipeline, and complex scenarios that pop up. It's a really great opportunity for us to brainstorm freely, and it's a collaborative model between city and school board that works, which is rare. This also does not preclude us from connecting with and involving other stakeholders. We often invite them into the steering committee for presentations, but because these are the funders, these are the ones that meet regularly. Our other partners also have been very helpful, and we've helped them as well. In developing programs, we help them by sharing data when and where possible. So yeah, I think it's a pretty successful model. I'll talk a little bit more about the Ontario Active School Travel Fund now. This was a provincial initiative. Money, $3.5 million came from the Ministry of Education, and it was funneled through Green Communities Canada, who led the fund. This was meant to increase active school travel opportunities for elementary students in Ontario. So most of the funding went directly to local projects, and the rest supported an information hub housed within Green Communities, and also helped to strike the OAST Council as an advisory to that hub. So between 2018 and 2020, they awarded $2.1 million to support 28 projects that delivered AST initiatives in 52 communities across Ontario represented here. Then in 2021, they awarded an additional $1 million from the OAST fund to support further initiatives across the province. Those final projects ended in June 2022, and OAST has since dissolved, unfortunately. STSWR was lucky. We were awarded that $264,000 in the first round of funding and another $90,000 in the second round to lead projects in 3 distinct cities. So that helped to fund things like an enhanced school zone project in Cambridge, and additional clustering projects in the other 2 cities. We called it clustering. We were working on bringing in schools beside the schools that we were working with already. In 2018, I was invited to serve on the OAST Council as a practitioner advisor. It was really just to give the insight of what it felt like and looked like on the ground. And then eventually I became chair of that council. And then the OAST funding and counseling experience for Waterloo Region had a profound impact on the depth and breadth that our program could reach in a very short time. The collaboration that we depend on and the funding from OAST made it possible for us to develop 7 programs, things like our Trailblazer Student Walking Expert Program, a Road Model Program, much like the Pace Car Program, but inclusive of other behaviors than just speeding. Sidewalk Smarts is our pedestrian skills training program delivered to grade 3s and 4s, and others. We have a Drive to 5 program, as mentioned, etc. I'm happy to answer any questions about any of those as we move forward. We've made these programs available to many schools, and which is really, really great because that reaches outside of our STP schools. And then for our STP schools, we've been able to implement a lot of unique services, 42 plus different things, things like anti-idling campaigns, school presentations, classroom projects, special communications to parents. We've built a video, for instance, I'll share at the end of this presentation, walking and wheeling events and parking lot interventions. We've been able to offer ongoing support for 68 schools that have implemented STP since 2016, and to get positive active transportation messaging and instruction to over 22,000 students in the last year alone. It's become increasingly apparent that STP is best when it can offer complex, meaningful interventions and navigate a variety of organizational and political pressures and systems. In fact, we now offer over 60 different interventions at 68 schools, and they are performed by hundreds of different people. So we, including all of the volunteers and parents and committee members at each of the individual schools. So we figured out really quickly that we needed to develop a way to track everything. As we started to track it in a central spreadsheet, we also realized that the schools we work with might find it very inspirational to see their progress because we were inspired by it. You can see in this on this spreadsheet, all of these little check marks indicate some action by some school somewhere. So we decided we could weight each of these interventions based on the effort that the people were making at each school and the level of impact that each intervention would have. This allowed us to associate points with each intervention and to develop an award system based on the number of points a school would earn as they traveled through this process. You can see here that the various levels of achievement are Explorer. We bring them in as explorers, then we go through bronze, silver, and gold. And finally, the very special level of champion is in that ongoing space where the school has already worked with STP for at least 2 years and reached a place where they can focus on education and encouragement interventions, which will be ongoing interventions in perpetuity, and we will be here to help them do that. Our champion schools also always have the option of starting new actions as needed when new problems arise, as I mentioned earlier. Our system also gives us an easy way to report progress to our STP partners individually. So you can see here, this is our little dashboard. There's a filter where we can pull reports for each board separately or each municipality. We can pull a report based on the year that a school started. So if we wanted just the schools that started last year, we could see how they're doing already. It's pretty comprehensive. We're very proud of this little tool. But it is still just a spreadsheet, and it's prone to human error. So we're now working with a software company to evolve this system into a project management system that will help us impact more schools with the same size team, with just our 3 facilitators, while also giving schools and our STP partners their own portals to see and share their progress. Natalia, I'd just like to check in. Do we have time to share this video today? It's about 2 minutes and 37 seconds long.
Yes, we can do it. Yeah.
Great. I think I've got it linked here, and you know, I might not even work, so I'm gonna give it a go. But if it doesn't work, I just wanted to share with you one product that 2 schools collaborated on together. We had some funding from the Ministry of Transportation for this through their road safety funding model. And it was really meant to help parents make the link between their travel mode choice and the dangers that they see at school sites. So with that, I'm going to see if I can. Oh, I don't know. No. I just got an error message on that one. So I'll leave that with you.
Yeah, you can send us the link and I'll attach it to the slides in
great. It should be embedded in this, but I'll share it with you separately as well. So we did this bird's eye view where this we used a drone situation, and we made a little fun video. We thought it was a nice, approachable way to address this issue. So I hope you enjoy that later. And this is just our most popular celebration day is Winter Walk Day. I wanted to bring some photos from it. This was from last year, in fact. But you can see that even in the middle of COVID, our folks really got to get out and have some fun and realize that walking to school in the winter is fun, it's feasible, and they should be doing it more. So with that, I will leave you my contact information, invite questions now, and invite questions anytime in the future. If any of you wish to reach out, I'm happy to answer anything.
Thank you so much, Leslie. We are going to take some questions if you have time. Yeah?
Absolutely.
Thank you for your presentation. Of the 60 interventions, which ones do you find are the most effective in terms of getting more kids walking to school?
That's a really great question, and I wish that there was a simple answer for that. In fact, we know that it depends on the school culture. It depends on the school situation. So it may be in some schools that an engineering intervention is required. That is the single thing that will make the difference. And sometimes it's more of a a school culture situation where we actually have to spend a lot of time moving people's attitudes. So, and I'm speaking now as the OAST chair and understanding the projects that have happened across Ontario. We know that 1 or 2 interventions at a school is going to maybe move the needle a little bit for a little bit of time, but you really need a balanced approach. And that's why we built that spreadsheet. The way we weighted that spreadsheet, or the intervention program, the certification program that we have, is such that if you are not doing an intervention in all 5 E's, or well, actually we took engineering out of that because it's so timely and it takes so much time. If you're not doing something in all 4 E's, you can't advance to the next level. So and each one of those has to reach a new level to get up to silver or gold. And understanding also that we have some schools that reach silver and then they move on to champion. You don't have to reach gold because not every school needs all of them. But certainly we need a multi-pronged approach to really address what is the biggest issue. I think the most pervasive issue is that attitudinal barrier, which is, it's probably got more to do with convenience, comfort, ease, and, just joy than it has to do with it's too cold or it's too far or it's too long, or takes too much time. So that's a really complex answer to your question. I'm sorry.
No, thank you. Could you give some examples then in the package that you're sending us? Will we have some understanding of what those 60 interventions are? It'd be good to see those examples.
Can you repeat that question for me, Natalia? Because I could hardly hear.
Yeah, I think Catherine is asking if you can send us along with the slides some examples of the interventions, the 60.
Oh, yeah, sure. I'll send a full list if you like. Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, I should also say that the most success that we've had with interventions are the ones that the schools choose themselves and that they get excited about. So that's where we put our energy.
Yeah, Peter?
Hi, I'm with the Halifax Cycling Coalition. So my question concerns cycling. I saw a
Great.
mention of walking school bus programs. Does your project or programs involve any rolling school buses? I've seen elsewhere, Kansas City and some other places, that there's group cycling to school.
It's a great question. And that video I'm thinking that you're referring to, that was so amazing, that really broke earlier, or I guess last year, really inspired a lot of us. And we have a bike mayor in Waterloo who approached us recently, and we're in the throes of designing and organizing our first official bike bus. So we don't know how that will go yet. And we do have one example that's led by parents at Sotheby School in Kitchener with 6 or 8 kids, and it's just a few families that have decided to bike to school every day. So we have a really great video I can share with you of them, because another independent filmmaker made that. And let you know just that we're organizing now. We have a parent enthusiast who would like to lead it, and we still don't know exactly what it'll look like, but we're hoping to launch it in May or June of this year, and then hopefully inspire it to keep moving next year as well.
Thank you. Joe?
Leslie, Joe Duaron here. Two quick questions. Can you expand on how you have entrenched an equity lens as the 6th E in your initiative? And secondly, can you speak just a little bit about whether and how your constituents access the information hub that's provided by Green Communities?
How our constituents,
Access your information hub. You mentioned that Green
Oh,
Communities.
yeah, so the OAST Hub provided a lot of webinar learning and opportunities for those project leaders that they had for the projects that they had funded. So during the time that it was active, we had a lot of learning opportunities. Now, all of those webinars, I think, are recorded and available on their website. Mostly now, moving forward, that's where that sits, because the current administration in Ontario is not supporting OAST funding further. So it's sitting there, and the folks at Green Communities has been good about keeping the people around, with the hopes that if the funding will come back around again at some point. So currently we access it just through the web. But those webinars were really great, especially through COVID. Prior to COVID, we met physically and had some learning opportunities that way as well. They also developed different marketing materials and messaging materials to help move those attitudes as well. And those are all available on the website as well. So I'll be happy to share those with you as well.
Awesome. Briefly,
and then your first question I skipped right over. Can you repeat it again too?
Briefly, you could speak to the equity lens that you've applied as a 6th E in your initiative.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So we are by no means perfect at this yet, but as we develop any new programs and review our older programs, we are looking for ways to make them more equitable. For instance, for our Sidewalk Smarts program, we offer it to all grade 3-4s, regardless of ability. And we have run it with our ACE program students. So we've taken groups of kids out with who are in wheelchairs and done a kind of a shorter course for them, but it's all the same material, and the in-class portion, of course, they joined us with. So things like that. And then we're working with the tools we have right now, but also we're hoping to inspire further work on an equity map that will overlay active transportation infrastructure on top of other equity defining demographics, I guess, so that we can figure out exactly where the higher need schools are, to know that we're working with them first. So that's our biggest piece, and that's separate from the actual school travel planning process. So we don't want to include that in the point system, for instance. I'm at a loss as how to explain it exactly, because we don't have a systemic way yet, but we are reviewing each of our programs to ensure that we are and we're bringing in our partner experts to help us review those things, to make sure that we are offering them when and where we can to all. And I guess, as an aside, we do have information on the socioeconomic status of each of our schools. So when we do hear about issues at schools with low SES, we're more excited to work with them, and we are more hands-on with those schools, because we understand that they don't have the same sort of resources that other schools have. We have extra funding, we provide extra materials and funding for them, and we definitely don't rely on a parent committee at those schools. We're still happy to work with them because we understand those parents are very, very busy.
Thank you, Leslie.
Okay, I think we ran out of time in a way because we had a little bit of an issue with the sound
The
system.
tech.
Yeah, so Leslie, you're gonna share those with us and I'm gonna forward them. I really appreciate your time today with sharing all these expertise.
Thanks. I'm really inspired by your program as well. As you know, we've leaned on you in the past, Natalia, for things like our checklist. So I really appreciate all the work that you guys have been doing there for over the years as well. Thank you.
We'll be sure to stay in touch with you.
Yep.
Thanks.
Take
Okay.
care. Bye-bye.
Yeah.